Welcome to the Spheres of Spirit with Nancy Myers, aka the Lady of the Light. Nancy will discuss the everyday magic and wisdom of spirit which surrounds each of us, waiting to be discovered. She will share some of her remarkable orb photos, proving that our angels, guides, loved ones in spirit, and even pets surround us and guide us in our physical world. During this episode, Nancy will discuss one of the many spheres or aspects of spirit available to us based on her orb photography. She will also share a special channeled message from her guide, Leonini, and do an oracle card reading to help guide you along your personal spiritual adventure. And now, here is your host, orb photographer, author, medium, and speaker, Nancy Myers.
Hi, welcome to the Spheres of Spirit. I am Nancy Myers, and today I am so delighted to have my special guest, Laurie St. Clare, join me. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, Nancy.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. Good to be here.
We had some technical difficulty, and so this show will run a little later, but we got through it. We're going to get the show done for you.
Yep.
So, Laurie's here to talk about astrology, and Laurie is a Master of Evolutionary Astrology, a spiritual medium, a healer, and an author. So there is an amazing wealth of knowledge that she's going to bring to this conversation. When I started on my spiritual path, I didn't know anything about anything, right? Astrology, what I knew was, in the newspaper, what every morning, we'd read our horoscopes, right? That was as much as I knew. But the more I got into this spiritual journey, the more I realized, wait a minute, there's a whole lot more to this.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But my first picture, Chris, if you're ready, if you can bring up that first picture. This was a photo of, nope, that's not the right one. Go back to, that's the last one. Good. I think they're reversed. One more. Nope, the other way. One more. We'll get it. Do you only have two, Chris? Is there one more picture there? Yeah, you're toggling between two photos, so I'm not getting the third one. That's the other one. Then there should be one more. Anyway, it was a picture of that where the orbs were lined up, and they looked like the alignment of the planets. And so the quote that I used with it, and it'll be on the website later if you want to take a look at it. I'm sorry. It's just the technical gremlins are all around us today for some reason. But the quote says, "The signs of the zodiac are karmic patterns. The planets are the looms, and the will is the weaver." And I don't know, it says unknown when I looked up the quote. So that's what we're going to talk about. But first, I would like my audience to get to know you, Laurie. So tell me your story. How did you get into this? Who'd you studied with? We want to hear about you right now.
All right. I love that quote that you used. I think it's perfect, especially because of the kind of astrology that I do, which incorporates free will. Very important. So at a very young age, I was really interested in astrology, like you, reading things in the paper, getting those little star scrolls out of the machines.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah, way back when, right? How exciting. And one of the things was I was really interested in people and, how we relate, how we connect. I was always interested in looking deeper into things. And I especially loved mythology, which, basically astrology is all archetypes. And, psychology is all based on archetypes, mythology, it's all archetypes, facets of the human psyche. And so I bought my first astrology book when I was 9, many years ago, and, just, probably about, 15. And, that interest was always there. I never lost interest. It's something that always, excites me. It's something you can never stop learning. There's so many ways that you can, different ways you can use astrology. Um, and then as well, I, didn't get so deep into it because my life journey, I my brother, died unexpectedly when I was 10. My oldest brother, my grandmother also died unexpectedly when I was 10. My mother almost died, when I was 10. And
Oh,
so this really also, these circumstances really put me, in on a life path of introspection and looking for meaning. And so different things, different paths. And I finally got into astrology really seriously. Sometimes, they're really hard circumstances that put us on a spiritual path. Um,
absolutely.
right. And my cat went missing. And at the time, I was married, and my ex husband said, I've got this friend, and um, she used to do astrology. And she said, you should find an astrologer to find your cat, to find our cat.
Hmm.
And so she gave us the name, and I went to this guy who became my teacher, and he did what was called electional astrology. He also did horary, which is a chart that you run when you at the time you ask a question. It's
Ah,
good.
okay.
You can locate lost objects, things like that. And I did that with him. And um, I did the next week. My cat was found. It was not a happy ending, but it was very interesting because I ended up going very, turning my part of my life's work into astrology because of that circumstance. And so I
That
started,
was the
yeah,
catalyst right there.
yeah,
Ah, the
catalyst,
catalyst, right?
list, right. And you have to have a sense of humor in life,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, yeah, so I started studying with that teacher, and I studied with him for a year, Ted Phillips Jr. And then I went to a different teacher, my mentor and dear friend, Gloria Stein. Um, and Gloria Stein, for those of you that are astrologers, was very good friends with Marion March. And she got Marion March into astrology. Marion March is well known in astrology. She wrote a few books with Joan McEvers, which is The Only Way to Learn Astrology. And there's a
Oh,
whole
okay.
series of books. And so my mentor actually got Marion into astrology, but
Oh, wow.
she liked to stay in the background. I was with her for 16 years
Oh my gosh.
before she passed. And, every week, group of us, different ones at different times, but I went every week for our class. And and then also I studied with Steven Forrest, who I got my Master of Evolutionary Astrology with for many years. And also, when you study, you go to different conferences and see other people, and just like with mediumship. So, yeah.
So 16 years.
Yeah,
So how
just
long total have you been doing
um,
astrology?
seriously, 25.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's talk about, obviously, I have the right person here to ask these questions.
Uh-huh. Hopefully.
So, why is astrology so important to us? What are the benefits to us in knowing astrology?
Well, to me, astrology is like a life map. It gives you a heads up on what you've come here to learn, what you've come to experience. It's kind of like a cosmic weather report. If you were going to take a boat out, you would look at the weather report. What do I need? Is it a good time to do this? Maybe I should do this later. And so what it does is it gives us information to help us make better decisions.
Okay.
And and also people can have certain predispositions according to their astrology chart, according to the placements. And you know everybody can use different ways to come to a deeper understanding of themselves. Astrology is just one tool, and it helps us by giving us perspective. Each planet represents a different facet of our psyche, and how we can look at our shortcomings, also look at our gifts and how to use them.
So you say, okay, if we're going to take a boat out,
Mhm.
we would check the weather. Okay. Same
Right.
thing with our horoscope. So whether we check the weather or not, that weather's going to happen. So with a horoscope, whether we check or not, is that situation going to happen? We'll just be better prepared for it or can steer clear of it?
Well, I love this question because it's kind of like fate and free will. I mean,
Exactly.
look at the weather. Look at your weather report. Nowadays it's always changing, and so you always have free will. And
Okay.
there's a big debate, and especially certain types of astrology. Vedic astrology is very predictive, very fated. The kind of astrology that I specialize in is very much about um, that combination of fate and free will and your ability to choose. And of course, planetary, they have their cycles. All the planets have their cycles, and they are going to happen. But if you know that energy is coming, you can get ahead of it. My mentor, Gloria, used to say, forewarned is forearmed. Like if a hurricane was coming, and happens in Florida very often, you do certain things to prepare, and
Mhm.
then you go, please don't come to my house. you know and
Yeah.
and so that's everyone. And still some people leave, some people stay. That's the thing about free will. Does that
Okay.
answer your question?
Well, it does. Yeah. I mean, the hurricane's going to happen.
Right.
Right?
But you know what? It may move off at the last moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So when I hear people talk about, oh, your moon's here, the sun's
Mhm.
rising, the da 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 da.
Right, right, yeah.
If astrology is a language, how do you translate it? How is it understood better? Is it knowledge that's been handed down? Is it uh
It's very much
has it changed or what's the word I want? Evolved over time?
well, the thing is there's many different types of astrology, and then people will say, "Well, there's actually this many planets," or, "Pluto's demoted, it's not a planet," that kind of thing. I know this comes and goes, even just the difference between there's just a lot of differences, and it's really when you study astrology, you have to decide, what works for you, what type of astrology, and it is hopefully it evolves because we evolve.
Okay.
And so that's the thing. It really is about, our understanding and our evolvement. Um,
So
eh,
so you talk about, the different types, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but I wanna ask you, because when I read your bio, evolutionary.
Mhm.
astrology. Can you tell us exactly, well, or enlighten us as to what evolutionary astrology is?
Okay. Well, but it's basically based on the freedom of free will, as in, empowering you with, giving you the information so you can make better informed choices, decisions. But this astrology particularly focuses on looking at past life. Some people believe in reincarnation, some people don't. I never have people come to me that do not. But even if they don't, I say, it's been scientifically proven that trauma and certain things will pass through genetics. And
Mm,
so you can also look at that in a chart. So looking at a particular position of the south node of the moon, that's where an evolutionary astrologer would start at getting a picture of what your past life might have looked like, and then looking at other things in the chart of, okay, so got really good at these particular things, you come in with these benefits and knowledge, but also where might you be getting stuck, where may have you brought in bad habits or trauma, and then looking at the opposite point, which is the north node, which has to do with your North Star. Evolutionary wise, what are you working towards integrating? What do you want to bring into more balance in this lifetime? What do you want to explore more? And so that's really, um, astrology is a language of symbols. And
okay.
so it's the interpretation of symbols and being able to talk to somebody about what these symbols mean, and be able to use language that people can understand. If you're not an astrologer, it's not going to be really helpful if somebody just keeps talking about you've got, you know, Jupiter and Taurus trine Pluto and Capricorn, and
Man.
it's in the eighth house and 10th house. And so you have to be able to, astrology. The thing about astrology is it is beautiful because it's all mathematically based. It's my mentor Gloria used to always say, the astrology is never wrong. It's the astrologer.
Okay.
Because astrology, it's the art of interpretation. And also, when you go to different astrologers, they're going to see different things. It's like a painting. They're going to pick up on different things because of different life experience.
Sure.
Um, you know.
That's, it's like even when I look at the orbs that I
Mhm.
take, I'll see something clearly and someone else will see something totally different. So it depends where you're at.
Absolutely. I love
Mhm.
that you said that, because for me, astrology's always been really easy, but if you ask me to see to figure out one of those magic eye things, no way, not for the life of me.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Right. That's not your thing.
no.
But, okay, so full disclosure here, I had an amazing astrology reading done by Laurie, and, she confirmed a lot of things, and the past life, I didn't know that I was going to be able to hear about past lives through this chart, but you confirmed a lot of what I had been told through other mediums.
Interesting.
And yeah, so the evolutionary aspect of this, I mean, your type of astrology truly helps your soul path.
Well, yeah, that's really what I wanted to be able to do in life, is to inspire people to live the best possible life they can.
And when you said, "Okay, where are you getting stuck or what are your gifts that you brought?" I mean, you nailed me. I told Lori, I said, "Am I standing naked in front of you when you
Yes.
do this chart?" Because there are no secrets. It's amazing, what you see when you look at the chart or what the sun and the moon. Chris, can we bring up that, I don't know which slide it is now. Let's bring one up and we'll hit it.
Right.
No, we won't.
Mystery slide. Yay.
That's it. Okay. So this is one that I've gotten, and I paired up this quote just because this photo looks like the cosmos to me.
Mhm.
But it says, astrology is a language. If you understand this language, the sky speaks to you. And that's by a gentleman named Dane Rudhyar.
Yeah.
And Dane was born in 1895. He was an American author, composer, a humanistic astrologer. And it was my understanding that humanistic astrology was a term coined by him to embrace his human-centered astrology as opposed to event-oriented astrology. So I never know whose quote I'm going to find. Thank you, Chris. When I research that, but I have a feeling you've heard of this man.
Oh, yes. Most astrologers have. And sadly, I will say I have not really studied that much of Dane Rudhyar's astrology. But when you talked about the evolvement, that right there, his quote and doing, centering more humanistic,
Yes.
just right there is an evolvement, and what kind of, what we're looking for and what we're able to understand and accept more of with ourselves. If you go back, way back in the day, the astrology was very dire, very doom and gloom. It
Really?
wasn't, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you have your,
How
you
far
know,
back are we talking about?
just, a couple 100 years,
Okay.
and even further back than that, I feel like it's really in the last, couple of 100 years, it's really been more about the, opening, expanding of consciousness instead of the real, because it could be a bit fear-based.
So do you think, Laurie, that that's because we are now becoming, in that 24,000 year cycle that the dark ages, the bronze ages, and we're coming up into the new golden age is why the horoscopes and astrology now is a little more lighter?
You know what? I have to say, because I have Saturn conjunct my sun, I don't speak on what I don't know. And so
Oh, okay.
I really can't speak to that, because it's funny, because I feel like lots of people will argue with you. Like, are we in the age of Aquarius? This is the age of, because it's the, when does it begin? When does it, end? But I do know that we are what I would say is the great transformation.
Mhm.
Consciousness wise, we are at a place where we need to make, and my mentor, not astrological mentor, but spiritual mentor, Michael Tamora, who just recently passed, he would talk about, oh my gosh, I lost my thought there.
Oh, that's the
That
shift, the great
Yeah,
awakening?
yeah, just, and this is what he called it, is this is the time of the great transformation. And he said, we've been going along, just, very step by step, 1, 2, 3, very logically, very intellectually based. And he says, now we're at the point where the next step is a quantum leap.
Wow.
And so it's very much why this is opening up the intuition, the mediumship, the astrology, because we are finally coming into that place of really accessing all of who we are. And, for some people, it's very overwhelming, people that are not familiar with this kind of stuff, and psychic abilities opening up. And, it can, really throw people off. And
And
so,
and he
yeah.
saw this in the astrology?
No, he doesn't do astrology.
Oh,
He
oh,
he was
okay.
he was not an astrologer. It's funny,
Oh,
because
okay.
he talked to me one time and he said, "Lori, it's great that the type of astrology you do is that you understand that astrology is energy."
Oh, interesting.
And I said, "I do, because everything is energy, and it's a representation of energy."
Yeah. That's all the great philosophers and everything. It boils down to energy, like Tesla said, energy, vibration, and frequency, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, everything just, is a representation of it.
So you've been doing this for, you said 25 years. Have Do you have and I'm gonna put you on the spot here because we didn't talk about
Okay.
this. Do you have a special story or a favorite story, of how astrology, I don't wanna say change lives, but can affect lives? Do you have
You know what? It's funny because the thing I will say, one of the biggest things is people feel so seen. They
Ah,
feel so validated. And it's one of the funniest things I ever heard was when I finished this reading a chart for a woman, looked at me and she said, "My God, you could have just saved me 13 years of therapy." And I thought that was hilarious,
yeah.
but also maybe it was just the time, and she needed all of those years to be ready for, when she met me and we had this conversation. I don't wanna diss therapy because everything has its place, and therapy is great, but it's also this is the thing that I think is so beautiful about astrology. And if you have a great astrologer, is what they can see and what they can bring through and communicate to the person that helps them move forward.
It's so interesting because, I know now I can speak from experience having you, um, had read my chart. I don't think that came out right. But anyway,
Uh-huh.
you did my chart and, it's you used the word validate, and you
Mhm.
did. I mean, there are feelings or why am I feeling like this or why am I like this or why am I worried about such and such, and you really give it validation, okay, I'm not crazy. I really am and this is why I'm feeling like this because of
Yes.
when I was born or where the planets were or whatever. But we'll get into that a little bit more. Right now,
Okay,
I'm
great.
gonna take a quick break, and, when we come back, we're gonna delve into a little bit more of the different kinds of astrology, and, then we'll see where that goes. So we'll be right back.
Okay, great.
Om Times TV. The story told in Entering the Light Fantastic, Discovering Life After Life Through Orbs, is about Nancy Meyer's spiritual and emotional rising from the devastating ashes of loss caused by the sudden and unexpected passing of her son Robbie. Just like the legend of the reborn phoenix, Nancy's life purpose and focus was transformed. With the help from her son in spirit, Nancy found herself providing proof through orbs that our souls do not die with our bodies. In her second book, Encircled by the Light Fantastic, A Deeper Journey into the Light with Orbs, Nancy continues chronicling her path of gaining spiritual knowledge and expanding acceptance of what is possible, while traveling to many sacred and ancient sites around the world. She shares these experiences with you along with her photographs of remarkable spirit encounters. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
¿Qué color? Perfecto, mijo.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care is one of the many ways you can help families in your community. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
And we're back. So I want to talk about, what you do, Laurie, is so
Mhm.
important, because I hear people say all the time, oh, get a reading to find out your life path or your life purpose or, how to know. And you can show them, mathematically, here is your life purpose. I love that. Or here's what you came in to learn, or here's what you need to work on, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, what you've to me, because I feel you have this conversation before you incarnate. And this is also why you come in with the chart that you do, because it's part of the plan that you've come into. And of course, you know, we always have free will. We can get up and say, okay, today I'm going to clean the house or, uh, sort that paperwork that I need to. But then we can decide maybe not. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe we'll do it next month.
Next life, exactly, and that shows up in the chart too, like, "Oh, you know what? That karmic bill is due." Yeah.
Yeah. But people tell me, Laurie, and we talked about this briefly off camera, what I do, capturing loved ones in the orbs is it's proof. Here,
Mhm.
there they are, right? You can take this photo home and look at it. And in a way, that's exactly what you do, because when you put a chart, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you put a chart together? What do you look at? What do you, I know it's where you were born, what time and all that, and then expand on that a little bit if you would.
Yeah, you do, to run a person's chart, you need their date of birth, the time, and the place. And so as you know me as a medium, that I'm also a medium and a psychic. So when
And
I
very good medium and psychic, I might add.
Thank you. So when I look at a chart, it's funny because and I have studied astrology. I learned my basics. It's just like, when you study music, you learn all the notes and then, or you're going to learn how to write. You have to learn the alphabet and then you put words together and then you put sentences together. And the more that you practice, the better that you get. And so, I've done years and years of repeating, how to read a chart. And so it's very easy for me to, look at a chart, to actually hold them in my head. And, someone can tell me what the chart is and I can visualize it. And I will always look for what is going on in the chart right now, because no one ends up coming for a reading unless something is going on. And
Right now.
so
Mhm.
right now, and so I'll look at their chart and I'll know where all the planets are in the sky, right now. And uh, all the time, there will be something that is in the sky that is activating your own personal chart. And so it's awakening something. It's ringing that bell. And that's why people come. And so that I know that's always something to talk about.
So there's many different ways. I said we were going to talk about the different types of
Mhm.
astrology or charts. So birth chart, I think, is the one that I'm most
Yeah.
familiar with. But what are some of the others? Because you said everything has a chart, a birth chart. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah.
Not everybody, everything.
Everything. Well, here's the thing. Um, we've got the time we were born, right? That's a birth chart. It's a natal chart. That doesn't change. We have that our whole life. But we have everything has a beginning. And so, like, I would call it a birth chart, but other people may call it an event chart.
Okay.
So, but it's the beginning of something. So if you get married, that's a beginning of a marriage. So you run you can have a chart for the time that you say your vows. And that is like the birth chart for your marriage. That's why it's important if you're making, well, if you would like, there's no have tos in all the world. You could go to an astrologer that specializes in picking dates, picking auspicious dates
Huh.
for, getting married. And also, even before that, it's great if you want to go have your chart with your beloved, and look at the two together and see, what might be things that might be challenges and how you can work around them, how you can understand each other better. It's fascinating. Uh,
Wow.
so as well, when a state becomes a state, when a city becomes a city, there's an incorporation. And like a business, when you incorporate, when you open the front door, that's a beginning. And so you can run a chart for that. So it's like a birth chart. You run it for that time, that place, that date, and it gives you um, a snapshot of what this is going to be about, what things could happen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So when you go, let's say, we had a daughter that wants to get married. Okay, what's the
Mhm.
best date? Or she picks a date, and you would, or whoever's doing it would say, well, with who you are, this
Mhm.
is how it would match up or affect you at the time, right? Is that how
Yes,
that works?
that as well. I mean, the thing is more, I think, y- you would look at a marriage date as just a good date in general. Like if it's a first marriage, you wouldn't want Mercury retrograde. You, if it's a second marriage, that doesn't matter so much because you've done it before. Venus, which has to do with relationships, you wouldn't necessarily want that retrograde because that's about love. You wouldn't want what's called the moon void of course. You would want, certain things like for longevity, you would want certain things. And then it's a bit complicated. So you would also look at her chart with the event date, and also, if it's she's marrying a guy, like his chart. And then also you can make one chart out of the two. It's called a composite. And that's another aspect of relationship astrology.
No, I see why you've been studying this for 25 years.
Exactly.
It just gets so intricate, right?
Yeah, it is.
So you brought up that word retrograde.
Yep.
We have been hearing so much, "Oh, it's Mercury retrograde. Oh, no," and everybody goes, "Oh, no,
Right.
don't do anything." What is retrograde, Laurie?
Well, the thing is, see, the planet doesn't actually go backwards. It's just that there's a difference in oh my God, now I can't think of the word, the speed of the planets, and they're not all the same. The planets don't all have the same orbit. They don't move all at the same speed. And
Okay,
so there are times when, um, because of Mercury's orbit in relationship to Earth, it appears to go backwards.
okay.
And so it's funny because I liken it to, have you ever been on the freeway and you're driving up next to a car and it looks like the wheels are spinning backwards,
Right.
but that's not happening.
Possible. Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of like messes with your mind, right?
Mhm,
And it
mhm.
makes you think, that's not happening, is it? And so when Mercury goes retrograde, because Mercury is the planet that deals with communication, it deals with our thoughts, our speaking, also merchandise, connecting and doing business. Uh, it can be computers. And of course, it depends on what sign Mercury will go retrograde in. That has to do with where you might have challenges, and then also where it goes retrograde in your own chart.
Wow.
And so the thing about Mercury retrograde, it goes retrograde 3 times a year for 21 days. And people get really flustered about it, where really it's like a review. If you have a business, if you have anything, you always need to stop and take some inventory and go, okay, you know what? Do I need to restock on this? Do I need to redo this? Do I need to change this up? And that's what Mercury retrograde does, is it says, okay, let's slow down, let's review, let's listen more than we speak, because we can have miscommunications, because Mercury normally goes really fast. Mercury, if you know what Mercury actually, the image of Mercury has wings on his feet,
Yes, he does.
and it's like boom, 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 And so when it's retrograde, we're so used to, this quickness. And so you might jump to conclusions. That's why whenever Mercury goes retrograde, I always say, verify, clarify, say, this is my chance to enhance my communication skills. So I just want to check.
Mm,
I think you just said this. Is this what you said? Is this what you meant?
yeah. Is
And
that what I heard? Yeah.
right. And so often, because of our own mental perceptions, everybody's got their own filter. The person might say, what? That's totally not what I meant. That's totally not what I said.
Okay.
So that's the blessing of Mercury retrograde, is we get to go over unfinished business. Things can come up from the past that we thought we had finished, but it's like, no, not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a time to reassess and absorb and to assimilate
Yeah,
things, right? Too.
absolutely.
So because are all the planets? I mean, retrograde has to me a negative connotation, but you explained why. No, it's not so bad. But do all planets go into retrograde at one time or another?
They do. They all have different cycles. The outer planets, Pluto and Neptune and Uranus, they go retrograde, for months at a time. And
Oh,
so they're, because we're more in tune with the planets that are closer to the sun, like Mercury and Venus and Mars, Jupiter, personally, we're more affected by those retrogrades. Now, the thing is, those other planets, they do go retrograde. Typically, we don't feel them as much unless it's very specific to like a degree in your own chart. But the day that they go retrograde, or the day that they go direct, change from retrograde motion to direct motion, either or, the day before, the day of, and the day after, will really create an intensity in the world
hmm.
and, in consciousness. And of course, that will also have to do with where the conversation that they're having to the other planets in the sky. Is it a nice conversation? Is it a challenging conversation? So does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And you brought up one of my questions, which I
Which
love.
is,
Um, when I first was learning about astrology, or
mhm.
how is the moon that's X million miles away from Earth, gonna affect me? You know. So how do or why do the planets and the stars affect us here on Earth, individually or as a whole? what are your thoughts on that?
So, and also my experience, because I am a person, like, I need to experience things to really get behind it. And it's so funny because historically you can go back through your chart, you can go backwards and look at time periods and see when things happened. And so, that's quote unquote proof of how they affected. But if you just, the moon, easiest to me is to look at the moon. Look at the way the moon affects the ocean, the tides, and how much are we? Almost 90%. I don't know. Water. How
Water?
much of our body is water? And
Yeah.
of course, we're going to respond. Um, lunacy. Luna is the moon. When the moon is full, everybody is much more romantic. Everybody is much more emotional, but also there are many more crimes of passion. This is a time when the crime rate can go up. The people in hospital, the emergency rooms are overbooked during full moons, but as well,
More babies
farmers.
are born. Yeah.
Yeah, women, their periods go by,
The
the
moon.
moon.
Yeah.
But, farmers will plant by the moon. Just look at the Farmer's Almanac. Okay. So,
That too, and as I started to explore this thing called the spiritual journey, I kept hearing people say, "Oh, you're a star seed, you're a star seed." And we are literally made up of things of the universe, right?
yeah. Yeah.
So,
They
of
say we are stardust. Yeah.
yeah, so of course it's going to affect us. Um, is do you find that doing astrology, because I'm assuming there's astrology for major events and wars, and you
Yes.
see how
Yeah.
is there a cycle? Is there an overarching cycle that happens over and over again?
There is, except it's always a variation on a theme.
Oh, okay.
And so, each planet has its orbit, but they're not all the same. So they move in their own particular cycles, and then the relationship to each other will be just a bit different. And so, of course, we're different people at different times, always. So there are time periods where certain things are more likely to happen.
Okay.
But no matter what, it's our awareness and consciousness that we bring that affects what happens.
So if there's, the planets have this effect on the Earth, and it's set up for XYZ to happen,
Mhm.
we can change that?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe we can. It's the thing about fate and free will. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like, it's
They
50-50.
overlap.
Sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like it's 60-40. Um, and, but people really, this is why I love to do astrology, and everything else that I do is to raise people's awareness of how much their energy is a creative force. How many studies has there been done about meditation,
Mhm.
and group meditations bringing down crime in certain cities? And
Yeah.
so when we believe and act in a way that is loving and makes a difference, this creates an energy the same way that people, when they start to get in a negative, place of thinking and expecting something to happen, that energy is something that can tip the scales.
Absolutely. Yeah, our thoughts are powerful, our
Yeah.
intentions are powerful. Chris, can we bring up that last slide? And, this one has to do with, kind of what we were talking about. You hear the term, "It's written in the stars," right?
Uh-huh.
So this is actually a quote by Benjamin Franklin,
Yeah.
and he said, "Oh, the wonderful knowledge to be found in the stars. Even the smallest things are written there if you had but the skill to read it." And
Beautiful.
so, I think, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. And that was just a picture of a whole bunch of orbs one night that visited me. But, there's knowledge, not
Yeah.
just, there's knowledge there waiting, right? Or
Absolutely.
available to us.
Absolutely.
So, and for people like you, I am very grateful. So, Laurie, I want you to, hopefully you can stay. I've got to do my message from Leonini
Great. Sure.
and my oracle card reading. But again, everyone, if you decide to get a reading from Laurie, it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. It's reassuring, it's confirming, and it gives you some direction. So, how do people get a hold of you? This will be on my website too, but go ahead and tell everybody.
My website is www.Laurie, Laurie, St. Clare, STCLARE, .com. I'm on Facebook. It's the same. I'm on Instagram. That's the same. That's the best way to reach me.
To schedule that appointment, just reach
Yeah.
out on one of those platforms.
Yeah,
Okay. Do you
absolutely.
want to hang around for the messages here?
Sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So, oops. I don't know. I think Chris clicked her off. Okay. So, as everybody knows, there's those gremlin technology gremlins again. As everybody knows who's followed me, I sit and I get a message from my guide. And this one was, they all amaze me, but this is yesterday. She said, "You hold the key" is a phrase you have heard often, and it can mean many things. For us, the key that you hold has been forged by your soul, unique unto you. Locked doors cannot be opened without the right key, and conversely, a key can only unlock the right door. Imagine you are standing in a circular room with many doors. In this room, you feel safe because you are familiar with it, but it is small. It is confining. It is stifling. When you are ready to escape that room of limitations and dogma and beliefs that have been imposed upon you by others, you will intuitively know which of those doors to open. Your intent to expand will produce your unique key, and the door will be unlocked to a whole new world. What lies behind these doors has been carefully chosen just for you. Sometimes there are many successive doors for you to walk through. Sometimes you only need to walk through one. Your journey is unique, but your journey is always available to you if you choose to unlock the possibilities. So I love that one. So we talked about the stars, and so the oracle cards that I grabbed today, it says starry beginnings. And it's so funny, when I first looked at this, I thought it said starry beings. But anyway, so let me draw a card here for everybody. I always put the intent that this message is for everybody to give you some assistance. I always ask that the messages are hopeful, helpful, and healing. So let's see. I'm not an astrologer like the amazing Laurie St. Clare. And really, I can't encourage you enough to get a reading from her. They're really quite amazing. And as you heard, she can really tailor your reading as to what's going on in your life at the particular time. But this is my way of tapping into the stars, if you will, through this particular deck of oracle cards. So, okay, they said that's enough. So let me just do my final shuffle here. And the card that I turn, oh, this is so interesting. When I pulled this deck out of the box, getting ready for the podcast, a card came flying out, and I went, well, I'm not ready for the reading yet. So I put it back in the deck. You just heard me shuffle and do all that, and I pulled the same card. And it says, it is safe to let go. You are surrounded by love. So this is a time for you, and we talked about reassess, reevaluate. We're going to be heading into Mercury retrograde, I think, April, Laurie. And Laurie said sometimes you look at what you need to let go, what's not serving you, what's not bringing you joy, and you can't make room for the new until you let go of the old. So this is the cosmos way of saying it's okay. It has served its purpose. It's time to let go. So I want to thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time on the Spheres of Spirit. Bye-bye.